Hey Nate, how are you doing today? Welcome.
I'm really good. How you doing, Tammy?
I'm excellent. Wishing this great weather we have here in Cheyenne would stay, but I'm afraid snow is on the way.
Snow. Don't say that word yet.
Yeah,
It's not time for snow yet.
right. So, what have you been working on? Have you been in the garage? I think I've seen a couple of pictures of a Jeep in your garage.
I have been working on. So my wife. Well, first we decided not long ago to name her Jeep Merida because of its color.
Merida, is
So,
that the color?
well, the color is that copper color. It's called
Right.
Copperhead. They had in
Okay.
2014 and maybe a couple other years. And if you watch any Disney animated movies, you know that there is a movie
Oh.
about called Brave, which is about this Scottish. I don't know what you want to call her. She's princess technically, but she's like not your average. But she has this red hair because she's Scottish, right? So with the kids and my wife and everything, and like the
Oh.
character in general. Anyway, the Jeep we call it Merida.
I have
Merida is getting
no idea.
taller.
Yes, I'm like, he's not gonna be able to pull it out of the garage because it's gonna get stuck because it looks
Yeah,
like it's almost too tall.
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. I hope not. It's getting a metal cloak 2.5 inch lift.
Okay.
But you know how the JKs come from the factory with that slant. You know, the front is lower than the rear. I guess it's
Mhm.
supposed to improve fuel economy or whatever. I think the lift is meant to level that as well. So you probably get a little more lift out of the front. The front looks tall now. I
Right.
mean, just tall. But
Just be careful when you like, is it a hard top or a soft top? I can't remember.
it's a soft top. And before the lift, if I would pull it in the garage with the top up, the top would scrape. So I always have to
Yep.
take the top down to bring it in. So the top is off it at the moment. So even if it does scrape, it's going to scrape on things like the roll cage or the windshield frame, right?
Oh, no.
So and it's not the garage door that's the problem. It's like the overhang because you have to come down like a little hill to get into my garage.
Right.
Um, I need a better workshop, is what it comes down to.
You need like
But
a 4-car garage with big roll-up windows and lifts inside, that kind of thing.
yeah, I agree. How are we going to make that happen?
I gotta start promoting us better on social media. I'm like doing a bad job. Hey, if you
So
guys are
yeah, we're
listening, share this with your friends. Tell them to listen.
yeah, get Tammy
Download
off
us
the
on
hook.
your podcast app. Yeah, I'll send you a or a Jeep Mama decal.
There you go. Maybe that's what we need. We need swag.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the lift's going on. There's a couple other little doodads that are going on while it's in the garage. Some lights that she wanted, and they're like undercarriage lights we got when we were out at
Uh-huh.
Bantam. Um, a switch panel for the lights
Oh,
and for a couple other things. So yeah, it's getting more than just a lift while it's in. And as I think you found out when you lifted yours, the front drive shaft, as soon as you put that more strain on it, that Resepa joint is no
yep.
good. So I'm
Yep.
just heading that off at the pass, and I am replacing the front drive shaft pretty much right away. I've already ordered it. I ordered a Tom Woods front drive shaft for it. As soon as I
You
got the
didn't
front on,
you didn't
didn't
say
what?
it the way you're supposed to say it.
Oh, I ordered a Woody.
Yes.
So yeah, I've used Tom Woods for years. I know there's a lot
Mhm.
of other manufacturers out there today, but you go with the one you trust, right? Not cheap.
No. And, I've dealt with Sean Woods, who's now kinda taken over the company, and their customer
Yeah.
service is just awesome. They're really good
I
people.
I had on my YJ, I had bought a slip yoke eliminator, which is for the tail cone on the transfer case. You
Mhm.
had to do that on the YJ and the TJ. I'll eventually do it on the LJ. But it replaces that slip yoke that's on there with a fixed joint, and then you have to replace the drive shaft. Well, I was very broke at the time, so I got the kit secondhand, like someone had bought it and never installed it. And then I found someone who had a drive shaft that was the right size U joints, and he told me it was a Tom Woods drive shaft. So I bought it from him, again, cheap. It all went into the Jeep. Everything was fine. Well, years later, I had sprung over the YJ and it needed a longer drive shaft. So I called up Tom Woods and they said, yeah, sure, send it back to us. We'll just charge you for
Oh,
lengthening it, right? And we'll charge you whatever the difference is. We're not going to make you buy a whole new drive shaft. I'm like, cool. So I sent it to them. They got it, and he goes, yeah, this isn't one of our drive shafts. I'm like, oh, well,
oh,
I'm really sorry, but I thought it was. I was told it was when I bought it. I'm like, just send it back to me and I'll figure it out. He goes, no, we'll do it anyway. I just wanted to let you know it's not one of ours.
wow.
So they did it
Sweet.
anyway. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, one time I had to replace a U joint on that same drive shaft, and it was in that CV joint, and it's not as straightforward as you think it is. First time I'd ever done it. I called them up asking them how to do it, and he walked me through it on the phone.
Yeah.
They're good people. They're good
Yes,
people.
I was just thinking that.
I will happily give them my money when I need a drive shaft. And I only had one other thing I want to talk about. Then it's up to you to talk about. You had your trip or whatever.
Yeah.
Flawed Off-Road. If you haven't heard of Flawed Off-Road, he's another guy. He started up a YouTube channel. It might be a year or two ago. The only reason I know him is he actually reached out to me when he was starting his channel because he knew I was a smaller channel, just like he was trying to start similar content, and he wanted some pointers, right? Well, he and I have become sort of like remote friends at this point. And he made a video. He's normally like a garage and rock crawling video channel, sort of like what I do.
Right.
But he was supposed to go on this trip to Colorado. All of his friends backed out last minute. And he decided, I'm just going to go and have an adventure. Right? So
I think I saw something about this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's possible. Long story short, he has a second Jeep that he was basically rebuilding that he was going to sell. I don't know if he's not selling it anymore or whatever, but it's a JKU Rubicon, completely stock. And him and his wife just hopped in it, loaded up their camping gear, and they picked a trail in Michigan and had themselves a little adventure. It was like a 3 or 4 day. I don't know how long it was. And he made a video on it. And I got to say that for a guy who doesn't normally overland, right? He just hopped in his rig, took supplies. They camped along the way. I thought it really captured the feel of what this should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you should be doing when you're out there. It's not about the gear and the expensive this and the that and the rooftop tent and all that. It's about getting out there and having fun. So I linked the video in the show notes. It's like, it may not be the best edited video in the world. I thought he did a pretty good job considering he's not used to this sort of content. It may be long. It may not be the cinematic adventure that you might expect from some other channels, but I thought it was a good video, and I think people should go watch it.
I'll definitely watch it for sure.
It's kind of inspired me. Like I kind of want to go out and have an adventure now.
And you need to do that every once in a while, like rejuvenate yourself. Rejuvenate, like what I'm doing with my blog. Rejuvenate your blog. Rejuvenate your YouTube channel. Just rejuvenate my promotion for this podcast, Tammy.
We need a marketing person.
Yeah. I just, it's overwhelming with these reels and stories and your page, and you're like, oh, and now you have TikTok and all these different things. It's just, you got to find the right, you got to get in your system.
Tough. It's tough to figure out what and how to promote now.
Right.
Because it used to be simple.
So fast. Yeah. And it's
like, go back 20 years. It's like, how do you promote? Oh, well, take out a billboard.
Right. And now,
if you're really rich, get a commercial on TV, radio ad.
And the thing about some of these, you got to find where your niche group is. Are they on TikTok? Are they on?
Right.
Where are they? And then you got to find them there. So anyway, I did not sleep in a bubble. I thought we were going to book the bubble. I know, I'm sorry, but I did something
disappointed.
Scarier, way scarier. So we did hot springs. We went up to St. Elmo Ghost Town in Colorado. If you guys are ever in Buena Vista.
I have the perfect thing. I haven't been able to use these on this show yet, but see if this comes through. Did you hear it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
You good. Here we go. Sound
No
effects.
sleeping in a bubble. Womp
I know.
womp.
Womp
Okay.
womp womp.
Anyway, sorry, I
That's
interrupted.
all right.
Scary moment.
So we went up to Buena Vista. We were in Buena Vista, and we went up to St. Elmo's Ghost Town, which, if you guys are ever on your overland adventures or in your Jeep or wherever, I highly recommend going up there. And Tin Pass Cup is up there, which is a fun trail to take your Jeep on. We didn't have time to do that. My sister's like, "Oh yeah, we can drive right up there." I'm like, "You do not understand. It says 6 miles. It's not going to take us 6 minutes. It could take us all day long."
Yeah.
So anyway, we went and just traveled around. We saw some cool old railroad tunnels, which is near Buena Vista if you're ever there. And then we went to Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is a mini Las Vegas. There are casinos there. She won money. I didn't. But there's also a gold mine there. And she
No, wait.
really, really.
I saw
Oh,
the
yeah.
pictures on social media. You won money.
Oh, well, that I put $20 in, and that's what I got back. 5 cents and
Oh,
1 cent.
I
So
thought you had won 5 cents and 1 cent.
no,
Okay.
that's all I had left.
You lost $20 to
I
get
lost
5 cents and one
cent.
cent.
Exactly. Exactly. I
I
paid
get it.
$20 to so we were at a gold mine,
Gold
and they have
mine.
tours where you can go down in the mine. Like, you are a miner, and they put you in that little rattly cage and you go down. It is the scariest thing ever. And we were down under the mine 1,000 feet under the top level, which we were still 9,000 feet above sea level because we were on a 10,000-foot mountain. But I don't know how these miners did it. It's the scariest thing ever. I'll have a short little video one of these days on my Facebook channel. So that's what we did. We never
That's
slept in a
crazy.
bubble. Yeah, we did the Garden of the Gods near Colorado Springs. Just kind of short, quick little fun things. But that was my adventure. It wasn't Jeep off-roading. It was a lot of scenic byways, little places where you can take a normal car. So, you don't always have to go, out on these hard trails to do fun things. Unless you're into super hard rock crawling, then, you obviously have to. But there's always adventures you can take, even in your stock Jeep.
Yeah.
You don't
Well,
have
that's
to lift
exactly the
it.
point, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what I was talking about just a minute ago, right? You don't
Right.
not everything. In fact, for a trip like he went on, I almost would rather easy trails because
Yes.
it's about the view and it's about not being stressed out and it's more like a vacation than a
Relaxing. You're not
yeah
stressed that you're gonna break your Jeep, and
yeah.
you're
If
chilled.
if I'm in the middle of nowhere, I'm not going to be rock crawling and possibly roll over the rig or break something, right?
Right.
Especially if I'm out there alone or you know even with a smaller group, right? You don't want to break anything serious in the middle of nowhere.
And there's so many hidden gems out there that, you don't realize that are out there. Like these old 1800s railroad, like they're in the mountain. The people back then, how they did it is they carved or blew up or used dynamite or whatever these tunnels in the mountain so the trains could get through, because you kind of had to do that out west,
Yeah,
to get over and through and around these mountains. So
yeah.
it was really fun.
We have things similar to that here. It's not quite the same scale of mountain, but
Right.
there was a lot of coal in this industry, right? So
Yep.
there's a lot of cases where they dug into a mountain for coal, or they dug through a mountain to get a train through it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
That's really, really kind of neat. So that
it is
was,
neat,
yeah, that was my last
especially
trip back.
when you think about the era that they were doing this stuff in and how they must have done it. Like there was a lot more pickaxes and a lot less heavy machinery, right?
They were showing us inside this gold mine basically for 18 hours a day. They were in these mines, and they just had their little pickaxe, and all they're doing is hammering all day long to find gold. And the gold there is not like gold nuggets. It's these gold flakes in this rock. And then the reason they discovered it is because they had a little campfire once, and all of a sudden it just heated up this rock, and gold is bubbling up through this rock. And that's how it was discovered. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Wow.
And it all has to do with that whole area in Colorado is just like one big volcanic thing.
What?
Millions of years ago, it just erupted and all this stuff happened. All these
What does that tell you? What does that tell you about the greed of mankind? That there's a rock that has tiny flecks of gold in it, and they spent however long, endangered how many people to dig the gold out.
Yeah.
For what? For what? It's not like you can eat gold. It's not like you can burn gold.
Oh, I know.
It's 100% greed.
And I got one of those rocks. Shoot, where is it? Hang on. So I know people listening. So we each got a rock. I actually got two. And I know you can't really tell, but it just looks like just a regular rock. Not even a nice looking rock.
It's not even shiny.
No, and I can kind of see, you probably can't see it, some tiny flecks in there, but you would never have guessed. It looks just junky.
Heat it up and see if the gold comes out of it.
Yeah. It's probably worth like 5 cents.
It's just a rock. They gave you a rock with nothing and told you there was gold in it.
Right. They lied. At least it was free.
Totally not. Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, it sounds like an adventure anyway, even if you didn't get to sleep in a bubble.
No, I didn't. Maybe next time we'll sleep in a bubble.
Maybe next time.
I know we told folks we were going to talk about. I'll let you do this next thing. Sorry. Where to find us.
Oh, yeah. Right. Don't forget, folks, remember, subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and if you want to find us, go to offroadinsiders.com. You can find all the places that you can subscribe or watch the show. Check us out on Instagram or Facebook. Just look for the Off-Road Insiders. If you want to contact us, offroadinsiders@gmail.com. We do actually check that mailbox, and no one has emailed it yet, or at least I checked it. Do you check it, Tammy? I don't think you do.
No, I don't.
I don't think I ever gave you the password. I'll have to get that to you.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's my fault.
You might have. I don't remember. Or you were going to, or something.
It's probably
all your fault. Yes. No.
But yeah, if you got any ideas for the show or want to suggest a guest, or if you want to be a guest, reach out. Let us know. All right. So you were saying.
Well, we told you last week we were going to talk about trail ratings. And then we kind of had to adapt because we went on long with our interview, FM Jeeper. So check out the last episode. And so we didn't get to some news. And some of the news we wanted to talk about are some trail closures in Moab. And so we decided we're going to do trail ratings, another show. And we're going to talk about BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, and their trail closures here on the west in Moab, Utah.
So
this is a thing that happens a lot.
I figured we'd start at sort of a high-ish level because some people listening may not really have a concept of what the BLM is, right? Like
correct.
In PA, I think we have a BLM, but they don't. Off-roaders don't, that I'm aware of anyway, don't interact with them in the same way that people out west seem to, right?
Correct.
Because it's Bureau of Land Management, right? I got that acronym right, I think.
Correct.
And they're basically a government body, local, like a state. I think they're generally state run. I don't think they're federal.
They're under the Department of Interior. I do know that.
So that might be federal then.
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't know enough about our government.
So what?
Except that it's broken.
So remember back in the day, long time ago, they had where you could head out west and you could make land claims. And so that's kind of where the BLM kind of started from. And they also had public, or what do you call it? Public grazing. And so I forget what the original, I think it was the General Land Office, which was established in 1812, and the U.S. Grazing Service. And the Division of Grazing, that was for your cattle and your goats or whatever else you had to graze on all these lands out here. So they combined those in 1946 during the Truman administration, and they called it the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. And so that's how that came about. And they have, gosh, I know their budget, I remember reading, is $1.7 billion.
And their job essentially is to manage, access, and maintain public lands.
Public lands, correct.
Right.
And it's 1 in every 10 acres of land in the U.S. They manage, and 30% of our nation's minerals. And this land is forests and mountains and rangelands and the Arctic tundra and deserts. And it's just all over. And it's in every state. They have this in every state, but it's predominantly in 12 states here out west. And it's like Utah and Idaho and Wyoming and Montana, Colorado, Arizona, California maybe, and New Mexico. Those are, and maybe Oklahoma too, if I remember right. But basically they manage all these lands, and it's public land.
Right.
And I don't know if you can, there's tons, miles and miles and miles of trails. And you can, like just right outside of Moab, there's some spots where in 2020, when Easter Jeep Safari was canceled, we still went. And we found camping. We were going to camp down by Ken's Lake. It's near, I can't remember the name of the trail. Steelbender. And it's just this little area, and people just pull around and camp, and you do your little campfire with your rocks. It's kind of like dispersed camping in the forestry department, but it's BLM land, and you can just go there, and you can actually stay there for 2 weeks, and you can't stay in one spot for more than 2 weeks, and you can camp there for free. First come, first serve. And it's public lands. It's our lands. And a lot of these trails are free too. You don't have to pay to get on them like you do at off-road parks. And Moab is full of all of these public lands.
See, you've already sort of started down this path, right? So I wanted to kind of weigh, like, is the BLM a good thing or not?
Right.
And I think that's a mixed bag, right? So
correct.
In my opinion, from my side of the country, where we don't have a lot of public land for anyone to use, except for like national parks and whatnot, but those are a lot more restricted generally. Although there is access to those. I feel like having an agency that's sole purpose is to make sure you can have access to these public lands can be a good thing, right? But the downside is when they make choices that impact your particular sport, because it's not just for off-roaders. This is for horseback riders. This is for hikers. This is for people who like to go swimming or floating down the river or whatever, right? And that sort of comes to the issue we want to talk about today.
Our habitats and
the
wildlife.
Right. Right.
And you gotta go ahead.
So all this background to lead up to the story that we wanted to cover today. And if you guys have been listening to anything going on in the off-road world for the past month or so, you've probably heard rumblings of this already. We mentioned it on our last show. And I think, according to the article that we link in the notes here, this may have already been a done deal by the time we recorded our last show. I think we thought it was still in process, but the date on the article suggests otherwise. But basically, the BLM made some, you could call them hard decisions or decisions. Sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say they call it their travel plan. It's a travel plan when they have these plans to evaluate our public lands and how they're managing it. So they create these travel plans.
Right. And the choices that they made were basically, now they framed them as this land has to be shared use, right? And they say that certain sports are incompatible with other sports. right? So certain, I should say, recreations are
Mhm.
incompatible with others. And they have closed down certain parts, certain things that used to be open to off-highway vehicles or off-road vehicles. They've closed them down to motorized traffic because of these incompatible recreations, right? So basically, like, oh, horseback riding and ATVs, they can't share the same trails. This is just a
Correct.
completely wild example that I'm coming up with, right? Because the ATVs scare the horses, right? So, you know, oversimplification, right? They're incompatible because horses and ATVs don't get along with each other, right? So they've shut down, and I don't know. Did we ever come up with a list of the trails that have been shut down? Did you do the due
Yeah,
diligence that I didn't?
I found it here. I knew somebody had posted it. So Moab is losing every major trail west of Moab is closed. Day Canyon Point, Hey Joe Canyon, which is one of the more popular, most difficult trail in Moab. Mashed Potatoes, 10 Mile Canyon, Hell Roaring Canyon, Mineral Canyon, Hidden Canyon, 7 Up, some of the 2 or 3 overlooks at Deadman Point, um, and Poison Spider, which I've been on that trail, Golden Spike, 7 Mile Rim, 3D Buttes, Towers, Hell Roaring Rim, and Metal Masher. Though those are going to stay open. The one from Poison Spider on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was gonna say Golden Spike was was
Yeah,
the first one I recognized in the
yeah.
list, but I think you said
So
that was staying open.
yeah, Poison
That's
Spider,
after.
Golden
Okay.
Spike. Yeah, those are all staying open. Um, and I know a lot of these trails, when I went out there, gosh, when I rented a Jeep that time I went out there, um, the guide that I had, he was showing me how, and a lot of this is not to pick sides or anything, but the razors, the side by sides, since the eruption of that, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these communities out here, there are a lot of them are rentals, people who are just like, on vacation and, are renting this side by side and they're out on the trails, woo woo, and they don't get what tread lightly is. They don't get about,
Yeah.
wheeling properly and having etiquette. They're tearing up these trails. And a lot of these side by sides they want to go fast. So they're making the trails wider because they're going around obstacles they should be going over. And they're just widening the trails. They're damaging our habitat. And so a lot of that is a negative impact against the, what would you call us, the Jeepers and the Toyotas and,
Full size.
the full size off-road rigs. So we're kind of been thrown in together. And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of the issues too, are, the
And
trails are getting torn up.
that was a point I wanted to call out. So there's two links, one right after the other in our show notes. One of them is a link directly to the BLM's announcement, their press release on this. And then the
Mhm.
second one is a Facebook post which links to the BLM press release. But the comments in the Facebook post, if you have Facebook, go check that out.
Right.
It'll show you exactly the thing that we've been talking about, the thing that Tammy was just hinting at, right? The non off road space, the non motorized off road space, still think that we're a bunch of hillbillies
Mhm.
out there drinking and destroying everything,
Right.
right? Like that's pretty clear in the comments, right? One guy made a comment that said that most off-roaders, and I don't know, I guess in his experience it's most off-roaders actually do more to clean up the trails than they do to damage them, right? And the poor guy got torn to pieces by all the comments about,
Yeah.
oh, these noisy ATVs, and oh, they drive too fast, and oh, this and oh, that, all the bad things that we call out and say we shouldn't be doing on the trail.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, whether it's perception or experience, this is what people think we're doing on the trail,
Correct. Correct.
right? And they're out there. I mean, you said it yourself, right? People are out there, and it's not just ATVs. I have run into plenty of a-holes in full-size rigs, people in
Right.
Jeeps, people in pickups, people on dirt bikes, people on ATVs. I mean, I've run across cross-country skiers that were a-holes,
Right.
right?
There's always bad apples.
Yeah, it comes from
Um,
everyone, like anywhere.
and I think there's a lot more rentals of those side by sides than there are of Jeeps or whatever. So you have people like when I was out there, it was March of 2020 when we went, when Easter Jeep Safari was closed, and me and Mike, a guy who met us in from California, we were the only Jeeps in town during Easter Jeep. That was supposed to be Easter Jeep Safari. We were the only Jeeps on the trail. And we saw tons of these side-by-sides, and we would stop to talk to these people. And these were people who, this was during the shutdown, they left the East Coast, and a lot of them were from New York, and they said, we got the heck out of there. We got into our RV, and we came out here. And they're just like, a lot of them are working remotely still, and they're out renting. They have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea about, they're just these big city folks, the country's shut down. We have the trails to ourselves. And we did the trail fins and things, and we're in 2 Jeeps. We're both full-size Jeeps, 4 doors. And the guys in the Razors did that trail. They passed us 3 times on that trail that we did one time. So that tells you how fast. And Fins and Things is not a short trail.
Yeah. Wow.
So a lot of it is, people renting these things and not really truly knowing what they're doing.
And, I have to say that some of the content creators that are out there don't help either, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
these are like full-size rigs. These aren't necessarily just ATVs.
Correct.
But you see them a lot of wheel spin, a lot of high horsepower, a lot of throttle to try to get over obstacles that if you can't crawl them, should you really be throttling through them? I don't know, right? You see rocks flying, you see dirt flying, right? And that's the kind of thing that if you see and you're already looking for a reason to be angry with us, you see that and it just fuels your fire.
Those environmentalists, those like, these trails should just be, for hikers. They are out looking for this stuff. They are out looking for people posting this. They are out looking for these videos to use against us. Now, I know this fight is not over yet. They are going to appeal these closures. The group, CO Off-Road Trail Defenders Virtual Crew, it says they're going to appeal it. There'll be lawsuits. It could take years, but they're almost certain they're going to lose because the law is heavily against us and motorized recreationists. We have very little legal ground to stand on. And a lot of it is, they said elections have consequences. This decision is likely came straight from the BLM senior leadership and the most anti-recreation administration in decades. Now, this was from that group who is going to try to fight it. There's an RSS 2477 lawsuit that's going on. So we'll see. We'll just have to, and pay attention when you see these posts, because there are ways where you can go on to BLM's website and make comments and to give your opinions and to, share how important keeping these public lands public to all of our outdoor recreation activities.
Yeah. But again, on the other hand, these are things that are not just for off-roaders.
Correct.
Right? These are trails that need to be shared. There's probably a better way to manage that instead of just off-roaders cannot be here. Maybe there's a way to share these incompatible sports or incompatible recreations, right? Maybe there's a way to say these months of the year, it's one, these months, it's the other. But we can't be out there tearing the trails up.
No, that just makes it worse for us.
So that when the other sports are there, they either can enjoy it, because I got to be honest, I understand why they're complaining if they can't go out there and enjoy it, right?
And if the trails are getting tore up, I agree.
Right, or if they think we're damaging things, right? So we can't portray ourselves as beer drinking yahoos that are out there destroying everything and not caring. right?
Right.
We can't be that. I know some people. I know it's fun to be right. It's fun to not care. It's fun
Right.
to use that LS to all of its horsepower, right? And watch those tires spin and the rocks fly and the
Mhm.
dirt fly. But we can't be irresponsible like that, right?
Especially, the trails that I was on in Moab, there is no need for that kind of wheeling. It
Yeah.
truly so one of the guys I work with, Tanner, he's never wheeled in Moab. And he went to St. George in Moab and he just got back. But he's wheeled the East Coast, South Dakota, and he was expecting these trails to be really, really super hard. But compared to some of the places on the east side, and like the trails in South Dakota, he said that, they weren't that hard compared to some of the other harder rock stuff out in the middle of the country and out east. Um, so there's no need for that crazy,
Yeah, I
wheels
mean
and tearing up the trails. It's
it's all about traction, right? I mean the
correct.
rocks out
Slow,
there, they call it slick rock, right? But
right.
it's not slick. It's
It's
actually they
you
say it's
stick
like
to it.
sandy. I've never been out there, so I don't know,
And you
but
can actually it's not hard to pick a line because you just follow because the rubber from your tire sticks to this rock. And so there's like a trail. You just follow the black tire marks
yeah.
all up and down these fins and wherever it's beautiful out there. The landscape is amazing. So I totally understand preserving it. Um, but
Yep.
there's got to be a happy medium.
Yeah. So I on many things in life, I consider myself toward the middle, right? I'm not going to be all toward one side,
Mhm.
stomping up and down saying, "Oh, we can't lose an inch," right? But I'm also not going to be on the other side saying, that completely
Right.
opposite, right? What I am saying, like we need to be more moderate
Res-
about these
Right.
things, right? We
Right.
can't we can't just say our sport is the only one that matters. And sometimes I get that feeling from some of the posts that I see that
Hmm.
we're the only sport that matters, and we can't be like that. We also can't just roll over, right? So there's got to be a medium. We all need to pay attention to when these things are happening. We all need to approach it with a level head, not screaming and yelling, not
Hmm.
calling names, not saying the other administration would have done better and this is all the liberals' fault. No, we all need to work together because these are lands that should be shared by everybody,
Right.
right?
Right.
Not just the non-motorized traffic and not just the motorized traffic, right? Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
So the same thing, almost the same thing happened in Mojave County, Arizona, years ago. They were going to shut down some trails in Mojave County, and there was one man who got involved, Rick Swats, and I actually interviewed him, and there's a video on my Facebook page. But he fought BLM and he won. They did not close down the trails there, and he gave a kind of like a step by step what he did to keep the trails open in Mojave County. And those are some really amazing trails. There's a lot of history in them. And he worked together with the local government there, the local county officials, because that's who BLM has to go through is these local county officials. So he worked with the county officials and they, came up with a plan and they found laws that they really couldn't shut down some of these trails because at one time they were roads. You cannot shut down like anything that's an old mining road before a certain time. I know in Arizona you couldn't shut it down. So that's what saved them. I don't know if the same thing applies in Moab because I don't think Moab is just trails. There were no mining roads out there as far as I know.
Isn't that what protects the Rubicon? There isn't the Rubicon
Um
Trail officially a road, and that's why it can't be shut
yes,
down.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
But it
I'm
also
not
means they can come through and change it if they want to, because
right.
it's owned by the state
And the
or the
Rubicon
government or
does
whatever.
go through some private land too.
Yeah.
I remember when we were there. Can you imagine? Oh yeah, I live on the Rubicon Trail. But Rick is was able to stop them from closing down a lot of the trails in Arizona, um, in Mojave County, which is Kingman, Arizona, Bullhead City area. Um, fun trails, beautiful trails, lots of history there. There's so much history
Is
out west. It's amazing.
is Arizona where Sand Hollow is? Or am I wrong?
Utah, but it's right there. Sand Hollow is right there in St. George, which is in Utah, but Vegas is really
Oh,
close,
okay.
and Arizona. It's all where the three states come together.
Okay. Okay.
But Sand Hollow is, I think, in between St. George, Utah, and Hurricane, Utah. We say hurricane. I guess they say hurricane. They just
Yeah,
had an event there,
I've heard
Trail
it that way a
Hero.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Well,
guess there's some really hard trails there too.
that's near where Gary moved.
Yes, yes,
He
yes,
moved
yes.
from Seattle down to I
Yeah,
forget what town
that's
he landed in, but he's near Sand Hollow.
yeah. I think is he in Hurricane? I think I can't remember now. But Gary's from
Could be St. George, to be honest.
yeah, one of those two. But he's down there.
The Light Bright
But
folks moved out there too, I think.
some other off-road shop moved out there too.
Yeah.
So they'll have to change their name to Saint Jeep instead of Saint George.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you have those kind of trails there, you're going to have people showing up.
So it's funny when I
But
was researching the BLM stuff, Utah is a mecca of dinosaur bones. When you get
yeah.
on to Hell's Revenge, you get up Hell's Revenge, and on the top, there are fossils of, I think they were raptor footprints up there. And they have
Oh,
like a
that's cool.
little stand that says what it is. And when I went up there the first time, somebody had literally cut one of those out and stole it.
Oh.
So when I was on BLM's site just doing some research for this show, just recently, um, they've found dinosaur bones are being stolen out of Utah and being sold to China. Allegedly, let me just say, because I'm trying to find the story. So
Well,
that's another thing that the BLM, yeah, disappearing dinosaur bones were sold to China. This story just came out 7 hours ago for $1 million.
this goes back to, if you ever want to read like a crazy story, look up the story of Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay.
She was apparently the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton ever discovered, or at least at the time. I
Uh-huh.
think it was in the 80s or 90s or something. And the people who discovered her, and they say it's her, I don't know, they named her Sue. I don't think they can tell if it was male or female based on the dinosaur bones, but they found it in Utah.
Maybe she was a they. Sorry.
Yeah, right. You
Just had
don't
to throw
know.
that in.
We don't know what sort of society the
Right.
dinosaurs lived in.
Dinosaurs had. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. They found her in Utah.
Mhm.
And there was all kinds of contest about who owned the land the bones were found on.
Ah.
And it is just like there's a documentary I saw somewhere about just like the story of these dinosaur bones and who owned them. And I get they were like stolen at one point, and like the government tried to seize them at one point. And it's just
Wow.
I think they're on display. I forget where they are now. At one point they were on display in Chicago in a museum. Like they were stood up as a dinosaur, as you'd expect.
Right.
But yeah, Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Sue the T-Rex. Go look it up sometime. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, I just put this article from I think it's Newsweek. You can just Google stolen dinosaur bones and you'll find it all over. But between March of 18 and 23, the defendants exported 150,000 pounds of paleontological resources that have been illegally removed from federal and state lands in southeastern Utah. And I think
Wow.
this is another part of the BLM's responsibility is to protect these dinosaur
Right.
bones on these
Right.
public lands.
So there's another example of how this is not
Right.
a waste, right? They're protecting history.
Correct.
So we can't just hate them. It's it's a love-hate relationship, right?
Right.
I wonder
We
if
just
that's who stole the footprint, if it's in China now.
yeah, who knows? Who knows? So China's going to have some museum open up soon, and we'll be like, aha, we know
Now
why.
we know where it went. Yeah,
Yeah.
prove it.
Right.
God, yeah. I guess there's a market for anything. Stealing dinosaur bones to ship to China.
Yeah. Very
They're
sad.
probably doing something crazy with them, like grinding them up and putting them in food or something.
You never know. You never know.
It's some weird Chinese delicacy.
Kind of like
Dinosaur
the bat,
bone.
right?
Like the bat.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, I think we've already tread closely enough to
Right.
various political boundaries that
Yeah.
might not want to be crossed. All right, so
Draw the line, Tammy. Draw the line right here. Don't cross it.
any other thoughts on the trail closures? We do have one news article that we can talk about. Good thing we put it in there.
Yeah, I just want to say, just pay attention, and if you see any websites or links or people posting where you can share your thoughts, it's your lands, it's our lands, it's everybody's lands. Whether you believe off-road rigs should be on the trails or not, just go voice your opinion, and because that's how we protect everybody's land. It's public lands. So,
and if you find any websites that appear to have all of a sudden got an influx of dinosaur bones, contact the BLM.
Yes. The Utah, I think the state's attorney has taken over in Utah, taken over that story.
It's
but
on the dark web, you can buy dinosaur bones.
Right. Right. All right. So we found a story which is very interesting, I felt. Very interesting.
Yeah,
story.
I mean it's interesting to folks who like Jeeps, which of course is an off-road topic. I know we tend to lean toward Jeeps a lot, but
we do.
Well, it's what we know.
We
so
know. We'll get better.
This is it's an article from Jalopnik, although it was reshared or something. I found it on MSN.com. Some of Jeep's best customers simply can't afford a Jeep anymore. I saw this flying around social media a few days ago. That's why I looked it up for tonight, because I thought it was interesting. And I got to say, like, this may 100% depend on what crowds you run in, or what sort of wheeling you do, or who you do it with. But I have definitely noticed, like through the Jamboree participants, for example, these folks, and I don't want this to sound disdainful at all, but they're putting a lot more money into the sport, both buying the Jeep and the aftermarket modifications, than we were 20 or 30 years ago, right?
Right. Because people think you need all this stuff, and you really don't.
Right.
Depending on your level of activity.
This article is basically suggesting that Jeep's loyal fan base, people like you and I, the Jeep brand, the price has risen to the point where it's out of our own reach. And have you looked at the price of a new Jeep lately? You probably have, I know.
Yeah.
Like we're all curious, right?
50 to
I remember
70, yeah.
I did a video a little bit ago. It might be 2 years ago now, where I was just talking about the Wrangler 392 and how expensive it was, right? It's like a $75,000 or $80,000 Jeep. In fact, it might have been more. That was sticker price if you went on Jeep's website and built one, right? Now, obviously, not everyone's buying a Wrangler 392. There's still the Wrangler Sport and the Willys Wheeler that are at the other end of that price spectrum. But even the other end of that price spectrum is 30 grand or more, right? Anyway, the article goes on to talk about sales, which is, of course, the metric in which we can actually judge whether people are still able to afford a Jeep or not. And they say that in 2018, 267,000 Jeep vehicles were sold. Now, that isn't just the Wrangler. That's Jeep,
all
the whole brand,
Jeeps.
right? And in as of this summer, I guess, I don't know if the summer is where they draw these metrics. Like, is that when the model year changes, I guess? That number is down to 181,000 across all of Jeep, right? Overall, unit sales for the Jeep brand fell 4% in the third quarter, the 9th consecutive quarterly decline, Stellantis reported earlier this month. Sales are down 9% this year through September, with all but 2 models, the Compass and the Grand Cherokee. Notice it's not the Wrangler. The Compass is their most affordable vehicle, I believe. I could be wrong. I think the Compass is like that at that lower end of the price spectrum. And the Grand Cherokee is probably one of the most identifiable outside of the Wrangler, right? The Wrangler has a very niche market. The Grand Cherokee is like your all-around comfortable SUV, right? So I can understand why those two are probably the best selling at this point. Let's see, reporting lower deliveries year over year. This after Jeep sales declined 12% in 2022 and 2% in 2021. Now, you know what happens when something is declining sales year over year, 9 quarters in a row? Change.
I was going to say they're going to make some changes.
Expect change. So I don't know. Is it the price? Is it the environmental impact? Is it that people are being more environmentally conscious? Is that going to change with the electrification? Is it that people aren't buying them because of the electrification? I got to tell you, the electric Wranglers, they're neat, but I don't feel like they're there yet. Right? I've wheeled with some of them at the Jamboree, and they're neat. They have a lot. They've got a lot of cool features. They are thousands of pounds heavier than a Wrangler, right? Which is going to be really tough to build into like a rock crawler or something.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah, well, it's the batteries. The batteries are really heavy. They're like 2,000 pounds or something. I forget exactly what the number is, but it's not light.
So while you were reading that story, I was curious, so I looked up the Toyota Tacoma to see how their sales. This is just the Tacoma. And in 2023, from January to September, they sold 179,681 Tacomas. So that is down. So basically 180,000 Tacomas. In 2022, they sold 215, almost 216,000. So that's down about 36,000. And it's down from 2021, where they sold 250,000 Tacomas. The article is very vague, but Tacomas are on the decline as well.
So the funny thing is the numbers you just threw around. It sounds like the Tacoma alone was selling about as much as all of Jeep.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Did it say 2018's number? Is that close to the 267,000?
2018. Let's see. 2018. Oh,
I forget if you went back that far.
Total. No, I did not, but I can't tell. They have a big graph here with monthly sales. I'll put this article in the notes too. And this is from Car Figures, Automotive Sales and Data Intelligence. I just quick Googled it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a trend with vehicles all around.
But I would say all vehicles are getting more expensive, right?
Yes.
Now, this article does address that as well. It says, let's see, the problem is that Jeep's vehicles now simply cost too much. The Wrangler, for instance, has seen its prices rise 40% more than the industry average of 31%. So that means that the industry is increasing on average 31%. The Wrangler increased more than that. Now that's just the Wrangler. Yeah, not all of Jeep, right? So if you compare an average across the whole industry to one vehicle, you're of course going to get that weird lopsidedness because the Wrangler may be the one that's increasing the most. I don't know. Anyway, 31% is the number I was looking for. 31% is the average price increase across the industry. So vehicles in general are getting a lot more expensive, which could be leading to less people buying vehicles and keeping the one that they have on the road instead.
And just, taking them to the local car auto shop. and fix
Now's a
stuff.
good time to be a mechanic, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so Jalopnik throws a lot of opinion in here. They say things like their portfolio has lost touch with the mainstream consumer. It's hard to back that up with fact, although I can say that I've had a lot of conversations with other trail guides, and they, pretty unanimously agree that the brand new Wranglers are just too much money.
Yeah,
There's a reason we all drive old Jeeps.
correct. And I don't know if I would want to buy the newer Jeep with all that new electrical stuff. When I was
Yeah.
working at Jeep in Minnesota at a Jeep dealer there, the techs hated the newer Jeeps to fix. They all came in with electrical problems. And if you have an
Yeah.
electrical problem, it's going to shut you down and you're in limp mode and you can't move. A guy here in Cheyenne just bought a brand new Jeep Gladiator. And there was, I can't even remember what he said what was wrong with it, but it was some electrical plug or something in his Jeep and he wasn't able to drive it. Everything, the engine works fine, everything, it was some sort of computer electrical snafu. And you're
I mean,
stuck.
that's been an increasing problem for the past probably 20 years. My 05 has similar issues where it's not quite as broad as the newer vehicles.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you let's see what a 2024 Wrangler looks like in 20 years, right? What's going to plague that thing as
Right.
compared to my 20-year-old LJ, right? Which has its
But the
issues,
but
some of
these
which are
newer
hard to
Jeeps,
troubleshoot, some
yeah.
of which are electrical, some of which are sensor related, and
Mhm.
and whatever. But worst comes to worst, I can rip the engine out of it and put in an LS or something that's going to be a lot simpler to run. Try to do that with these newer ones, I bet it'd be a nightmare.
Now, do you think you're back when you first had that 2005, you said? Do you
Yeah.
think when that first came out, do you think those electrical problems were there then too? Or do you think
Well,
it's
no,
now just a bigger
they were pretty solid vehicles to begin with.
Right.
So, if the newer Wranglers are having problems now, I'd hate to see what they're going to look like in 20 years.
Right. Correct. I get what you're saying.
But when I compare it to my YJ, that was like, I think it had a computer in it. I never had to interact with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It had a couple sensors, but they were simple things like the crank position sensor and things that help it run, help the fuel injection run. And if you went
Right.
back 2 or 3 years, they were still carbureted. I don't think there was any computer in those.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's when you had to set points, right? I still don't know what
Yeah.
that means, but I know that's what you do with old carburetors.
I
Or
never
not
really
old
drove a
carburetors, but carburetors.
Yeah, I never really owned a carbureted vehicle, so I never had the joys. I knew some folks that were just like wizards with those older
Mhm.
ones. But yeah, yeah, fun times. Those times are
The
gone
good
now.
old
Now
days. Yeah.
you need a degree. You need like an electrical engineering degree to work on a Wrangler.
Mhm. For sure. Oh. Oh, how quickly our world is changing.
Yep, yep. It's gonna be weird to see what it's like in the next 20 years.
Mhm. Or even the next 5 years.
Yeah, it is moving quick. It does feel like it's picking up pace. Maybe it's because we're getting older. I don't know. Somebody once told me that the older you are, the your
Faster time
perspective
goes by.
on your
Oh.
perspective on time changes
Uh-huh.
because your point of reference is so much longer, right? So
Right.
like when you're 5 years old, a month feels like forever. When
Correct.
you're 25 years old, a month feels like less. When you're 65 years old, a month is like
Yep.
it's
Oh, I
just
know, it's
another one of those.
already the
Yeah.
end of October almost.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
right? Time flies.
time flies when you get old. Not when you're
Yeah.
having fun, when you get old.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of time, I think we're at time, and we got through all the
Yes,
stuff,
we
and
did.
we're only like a minute over at this point, which is crazy. Usually
Good
we're more
job.
than this over by this point.
Right?
So that means we got to yammer on for a little longer. Otherwise, we're going to be off brand, right?
There you go. People are going, I want my extra 5 minutes.
Where's my 2 or 3 minutes? Yeah,
We've been
yeah,
doing a good job of trying to keep it at an hour.
yeah. We've been
S
trying our best.
So do we want to do trail ratings next week? In 2 weeks?
We might as well. Maybe people were expecting that.
Right.
You know what? It's our show. We'll change the topic if we want to.
Right. And I am going to make a vow that I'm going to do better at promoting us so we can get more people to download our podcast so we can be doing this full time. It could be our job. Wouldn't that be fun?
Huh. That'd be kind of cool.
But then we don't want it to be our job because we think this is fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I think it would take a whole lot of work to make this a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or so I should say to make this support our family.
Oh, right, our families. Yeah. Families. Well, it's just me now.
Yeah, it'd be easier for you. See,
right?
So that's the goal.
My kids are grown.
We'll make it Tammy's day job. How's that sound?
Right.
All right, folks. See that? We yammered on, and now we're 2 or 3 minutes over.
We're good to go.
All right. Well, this has been fun, folks. Thanks for joining us. If you've been listening live, which no one's listening live tonight, that's boring. We want people to listen live, so come check out our YouTube channel. Find the Off-Road Insiders podcast on YouTube. Go to offroadinsiders.com to find links to where you can find us in the various places. You can subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to podcasts. If you can't find us where you subscribe to podcasts, let us know. Although I don't know how you're listening to the show if you couldn't find it.
Right. They could be listening to YouTube.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. Or maybe your friend told you, and now you're like, I can't find them. How do I find them? Well, let us know.
And please share us with your friends, your Jeep friends, your Tacoma friends, your off-road friends.
All the friends.
All your friends. And let them know that Nate and Tammy are on the podcast streaming places.
Yes, all the places. All right. And with that, I think we're going to call it a night. So any final thoughts, Tammy?
Nope. Just have a great couple of weeks. Week and a half.
Don't be an a-hole on the trail.
There you go. True that.
All right. Have a good one, folks.